Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is my research proposal for RELLE under the title of Teacher as a Manager in Speaking Class through the Massive Open Online Course MOOC of 11th grade in SMN 21 Jakarta. The first ones, we will talk about introductions. In the background of the study, we believe that the teacher in the 21st century are very familiar with the classrooms only, but they don't have a kind of intentions to lead more higher rather than only the classroom. So we concern about the limitation as a teacher in their school for being professional. And in this research that we want to analyze how far the teacher could examine the instruction to become an instructional specialist, curriculum specialist, learning facilitators, interpreters, course team leaders, and data practitioner. And our reason as a teacher's manager and relation with the MOOC, we optimistically mentions about teachers and managers opportunities. It is hardly demanded of the platforms, namely Massive Open and Online Course or MOOC, as a tool of informations and communication technology or ICT. It because they could support the teacher in improving their English speaking skills because of the necessity in education changing area. Next, we will talk about the background again. The first one is to establishing territory, state of the art. Researchers from Benasiat MA 2018 mentioned the importance of speaking class through MOOC to cover up the teacher as a manager competence during their classroom material. And the establishing niche or novelty, calling us there is a gap between a teacher in SMN 21 Jakarta who teaches 7 classes in 11th grade. Some are familiar with MOOC and some still adapt to the traditional methods. And it doesn't matter that the teacher with MOOC skills are more demanded by students rather than the rest of them, because the skill of teachings and the entertaining to their classes and encouraging of the student motivations, it is hardly demanded by the MOOC rather than the traditional methods, that it is only based on the book orientations. And the last one, we want to occupy the niche, and we accumulate this research for more than 2 months and with different times observations to some classes in a different grade. So there are 7 classes in 11th grade, right? So the teacher will respond to the students, how they react to the implementation of the MOOC itself. And at the end of the day, we could realize MOOC really helpful to teacher implementing their classroom skill. And we want to analyze about the purpose, problem, scope, and significance of our study today. The first one, we will talk about how are the speaking class using MOOC of 11th grade in SMN 21 Jakarta. And the second one is, how is the role of teacher as a manager realized in speaking class employing MOOC? And the third one, how are the teacher and student responses to the use of MOOC in speaking class? And the last one, we want to know how is the student participation in speaking class utilizing MOOC? And from that problems, we could analyze the purpose of the problem itself. The first one is to describe the effectiveness of speaking class using MOOC of 11th grade in SMN 21 Jakarta. And the second one, to analyze the role of teacher as a manager relies in speaking class employing MOOC. The third one, to investigate the teacher and student responses towards the use of MOOC in speaking class. And the last one, to portray the students' participation in speaking class utilizing MOOC. The next one's about the scope of the problems. Following advantaged are anticipated from the study's findings, and we want to analyze. The first one is for student problem benefit from a classroom setting that is more favorable to learning. The second one, for teacher, the study provides informations about classroom management so that those who implement it can do it in a way that is appropriate for both the students and the teachers, a classroom's environment. The third one for schools as a model for creating higher quality instructions and instructions programs. And the last one for researchers, it is hoped that this research can provide constructive input to correct themselves for the shortcomings of researchers and increase the insight and knowledge of researchers about implementing a better learning process. And next, we have the literature review. It's coming from the teacher's manager of the learning environment from Linda, 2017. The first one, for the approach, we use the case study as a learning environment of the implementation of the MOOC during the class sessions, from the pre-class sessions, during the class sessions, and the post-class sessions. And the second one, we believe for the method. The method is to use observation sheet and interview one by one during the experience, during pre-experience, during experience, and past experience of teacher using that microlearning as a tool for their opening new opportunities in the teaching field. And the third one is the technique. For the technique, we use for more than 175 teachers who plan as the sample in this research. There is in manager concepts and 589 teachers still employ traditionally prepared people in the teaching environment without manager concept. So there are two subjects that we want to analyze. The first one is the teacher who use MOOC, and second one is the teacher who do not use the MOOC. And what is the differences between two of them? And in this literature, the next one is coming from Boylan. And Boylan said in the article of enabling adaptive system manager teachers leading in speaking class for professional development. The first one is approach. For approach, still in the case study. So they use a learning environment, speaking class for authentic place material and encourage the teacher to present their words. So there are two kind of observations that Boylan see in this literature review. The first one is the learning environment speaking class and the present their words. And the second one is the method. For the method, the teacher responses and task accumulations. And for more than 30 teachers in a school from one region in California. And the third one is the technique. For the technique, they use a qualitative research for 15 teachers with high performance in speaking class and 15 low performance in speaking class. So there are two subjects that Boylan want to research. The first, this research. And the next one is from Skenedorova. Skenedorova said that the approach will use the case study as well, but specifically for the effective classroom management through MOOC implementations. And the second one is for the method. She used observation sheets to synthesize the relevance of classrooms to young learners as a subject in handling MOOC. And the third one is a technique. She used qualitative research for 21 students and teachers in this class, especially the problem of attention-seeking students. So it's for teachers, 21 teachers that implemented for the qualitative research. And next, we will talk about methodology. For the research design, we use qualitative research as one of the design thinking method for this research through the MOOC. And the second one is the context of data for referring to some objects, which is the teacher. And the last one is in the title of investigating. Investigating means that we want to encourage the teachers to analyze what is meaning by the MOC for base learning, handling, speaking skill problems during their classroom sessions. And the second one of the subjects of research, we use the teacher in SMA 21 who handles the 11th grade using MOC in speaking class. Next, for data, instrument, and procedure. For data, it is for qualitative data analysis. In qualitative data analysis, we search and arrange systematically to have great data from the interviews and for some units and synthesizing them for becoming a pattern. After becoming a pattern, sorting them for the most important ones. Where is the most important ones? After we find the most important one, we draw a conclusions of the comprehensive research to readers. So the first method that we use for this analysis is data reductions. For data reductions, we use the techniques for collecting the data by the instruments of the interview and observations. And this side, we will use into the class section for 11th grade to all of the class in SMA 21. There are 7 classes. The second one is data display. Data display means that a display generally means organized and compressed assembly of informations that permits conclusion drawing and actions. What the meaning of it? We want to synthesize after we observe, interview, we got the data, and we could draw conclusions. We will select the answer from the observation from the interviews and also doing some checklists into the observations. Next one is the instruments. There are 3 instruments that we will use. The first one, interview. The interview will involve the teacher and student as well. The second one is the observation set. And for the observation set, the research will use it to overview the competence of teacher during the class or the lesson learning. And the third one is the for validity. To the content validity toward the project, we will combine whether or not the lesson plan or the CEFR is connected to the MOOC. And the second one is for the reliability. For the reliability, to use test retest mix with equivalent tests or internal consistency. So we can know how many effective this data, this instrument to support the purpose of this research. And for the last is procedure. For procedure, we use a qualitative research to get a deep understanding of the object of the research. And we could understand what kind of some techniques that we could implement to 11th grade with the MOC is effective enough or not. So in conclusions, we could use 2 techniques. That means in observations and interview, because the foundation of this research is coming from the case study. So it is aligned with the observations and interview. And this is for the last is the reference. Thank you so much for the kind attentions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.